the M4 GTS is back. Unfortunately, not for good and not under my ownership, but a new friend of mine, Dimitri, has purchased my old M4 GTS. I was at a car show a few weeks ago and a white M4 GTS pulls into the lot. It has icons on it and I noticed that it doesn't have a cage. I figured this is a 99% chance that it's probably my M4 GTS, and sure enough, it was. So let's talk about what happened to this car, where it's been, and why it's back here now. I sold my M4 GTS about a year ago, and it is the one car that I have sold that I truly regret selling. If you've never had the experience of enjoying an M4 GTS, they are incredible. The closest you can get to a just pure raw driven track car straight out of the box from BMW. And at the time, it really just wasn't right for me to keep the car because I had other things in life that were a priority financially. And so unfortunately, it came time to sell the car, but it was the one that got away from me. It was the one that I always regretted selling. So long story short, I ended up selling this car back to Alta Auto Group. They basically gave me what I paid for the car originally, so I really didn't lose anything on it. But the car sat for a while and eventually got sold to a smaller dealership in Ohio. Now, I had a ton of people DMing me about my car being sold at a dealership in Ohio. This car was originally in the 70,000s. That was how much I bought it for. The car was being listed for $69K in Ohio, and I'm telling you right now, it took everything in me to not go back out and buy this car again. Long story short, the car sat on the lot in Ohio for about 4 months at the higher $60,000 range. Shout out to Dimitri, who ended up buying this car for $60,000. That has got to be the cheapest GTS that has ever been sold. I don't know that for a fact, but you have to remember that these cars sold for $140,000 when they were first introduced into the market. For this car to be selling at $60,000, even though it doesn't have the perfectly squeaky clean Carfax and it is missing the roll cage, it is still nonetheless a GTS. So long story short, Dimitri buys this car for $60,000, brings it back to North Carolina. Not only does it bring it back to North Carolina, but he brings it about 10 minutes from me where I live. So now I get the pleasure of seeing the car that I missed out on, that I unfortunately had to sell at that time in my life. I get to see it all the time, to be reminded as to how awful of a decision that really was. Was it really that awful of a decision? No. Financially for me, it was the smart thing to do. But man, I miss this car. So I had a long talk with Dimitri over at the car show, and I told him, listen man, no matter what you do, if you ever decide to sell this car again, I get first dibs. But I told him in the meantime, enjoy the car, take it to the track. It's what the car deserves. And I said, if you ever need anything, if you ever need to diagnose issues with the car, you want to change anything or modify anything, please bring it to us over at CES Motorsport, and I personally will take care of the car. I love this car so much. Still, even though I don't own it, I still love it so much. So this car was actually at an Alfa Romeo dealership in Ohio. You can still see it has a lot of the things that I put on it. OEM icon lights from factory. These look incredible on this car. If you guys remember anything from the old videos, I actually refinished the original OEM splitter down below. It looks really nice, basically brand new. He's got the factory wheels still on the car. It still has the I&D paint matched reflectors. Car still has all of the PPF. The paint looks incredible, man. The thing is just in such good condition. Even though it hasn't been in my possession for so long, it still looks phenomenal. And that is just such a good feeling to see. Obviously, everything is still the same in the back. This car is just, oh my God, I miss it so much, you guys. It's so hard to put into words what this car does to me, but I just love this car. And I'm telling you right now, man, if he ever sells this car, which it sounds like that could be an option at some point within the near-ish future, I am the person who is next in line to buy this thing back. And I know you're probably thinking, like, why would you want to buy it back? You already owned it. Because this car is so special. And you guys, it's just one of the best cars I've ever owned. It just drives so good. It's such a special and unique vehicle. It's just unlike anything I've ever owned in my life. Still has the beautiful CCBs on it. Obviously, everything is still in great condition. Man, I miss this car. interior. Oh, the door cards. One of my favorite parts about this car. Now, the only thing that I saw that he did change was the steering wheel trim. It looks like he went with the IND, the paint matched orange to match the orange trim on this car, and some different paddles. But outside of that, this car is exactly how I left it. It still has all of the factory pieces on it, obviously, and it still has all of the paint protection film, all of the good pieces that I added to this car that really is helping make it last in such great condition. And I'll tell you what, just getting back into this car, oh man, does it bring back good feelings. I just miss this thing so much. It's tough being in your old baby that you used to own and just love so much. I will say, as happy as I am to see this car and have it back in North Carolina, it really just does sort of pain me a little bit, especially now that I'm driving it. Huge shout out to Dimitri, by the way, for allowing me to make this video and drive my own car. It looks like the car has 33,000 miles on it now. I sold it just under 30,000 miles, so it's only about 3,300 miles have been added to it since I sold it. But I'll tell you what, just driving to this spot right here, I got nostalgic, man. It was like, oh my God, why did I sell this car? It just, I don't know, guys. It's so hard for me to put into words, but this is just the one that got away, and it just wasn't the right time for me to continue owning it, and I wish I could have done everything in my power to keep it. We have a phenomenal garage now, but to add this back in the garage would just be like an incredible thing. So Dimitri and I did have a fantastic talk, and it sounds like at some point he will be getting rid of it to get probably back into a G80. He had a G80 before and ended up getting this car, and he wants to get a CS. And if he does that, I'm gonna be the guy that buys this car back, hopefully, potentially. And yeah, man, I just miss it. Such a great car, such an awesome car. Oh man, this is a nostalgic feeling, you guys. So we are back in my old M4GTS. And it is, it's an amazing thing, it's an incredible thing, and I love it, but also it's quite difficult, and I didn't think it would be this difficult for me to drive one of my old cars, specifically this one, because I just loved this one so much. But oh man, she is great, she sounds good, and it's a stock GTS, nothing crazy about it. It just is, it's just that allure that the GTS has, I suppose. It's just a firm ride, man. The GTS is something else. With this suspension setup, it is a very stiff ride. It's exactly like I remember it. Like, nothing different about this car. It's exactly like I remember it, just how I left it. And I do miss it a lot, obviously, as I'm sure you guys can tell. Those carbon ceramics are squeaking already. Oh, buddy, this is, yeah. I miss this car so much. So much. So you're probably wondering, why am I in this car right now? Let's talk a little bit about what happened to this car while it was gone. So Dimitri ends up buying this car from an Alfa Romeo dealership in Ohio. Don't know how long this car was in Ohio, but that in and of itself is a little bit concerning just because it's Ohio. I feel like that's where cars go to die once they hit the dealerships out there. But, you know, it's like a small mom and pop dealership, family-owned dealership, nothing crazy. Immediately after Dimitri buys the GTS, the Valvetronic has some sort of failure issue, but the dealership says, okay, no problem. Since you already bought the car and this just happened, we're just gonna go ahead and replace it for you. So they did some work to this car. We don't know if it was done properly or exactly what type of work was done to it. But Dimitri has said that the car recently had a misfire issue, which really could be a number of things, and a water injection line pressure issue, which can also be a number of things. So it's back in my possession here at CES because we are going to diagnose it, and we're going to figure out what is wrong with it, and we are going to fix it. And then we, of course, will give it back to Dimitri, and he can go ahead and enjoy it. Told him he's got to take this thing to the track, man, because I didn't get to track this car at all when I owned it, and really that's what this thing is made for. And he said, hell yeah, that's exactly what I'm going to do with it. So, But the thing drives very smooth. It's not throwing a check engine light. We are going to go ahead and scan for codes with ISTA, plug it into ISTA and see what the codes are and kind of go from there. Obviously, the first thing is to take it out for a drive, see if it acts normal, if anything pops up, and then of course read codes. And then from there we put together a game plan and figure out what we need to address, what we need to replace, what we need to fix. I have been out driving this car for about a half an hour and nothing has really popped up that concerns me. I have been waiting for the car to warm up so I can kind of give it not a crazy pull, but just get into it a little bit to see if there's any sort of hesitation or if the car feels weird at all. But in terms of just normal like city driving, it feels completely fine. Nothing concerning about the car. So back when I owned this car, I did check the water injection block, and the block itself did have the newer part number, which tells me that the water injection block on this car was replaced with the updated version. So I actually went ahead and checked that when I owned it. And then I also replaced the water injection stone filter, which is a known maintenance item that you have to do in these cars, sort of like a spark plug type deal. You know, you got to take care of that. Let's see how she feels. Yeah, it feels great, to be honest. God, these cars are so good. They're just, even in its stock form, this car is just incredible. They're just so fat. They're so torquey, like from the factory. It's really impressive. But the way that these cars handle the GTSs with the Club Sport suspension, oh, it's magical. When I bought this car, I drove it one time the day before I bought it. I was doing video reviews for a dealership, ended up driving this car thinking I was gonna do a review on it and it would just be like any other M4. Absolutely fell in love with the car, ended up selling my 340 and buying the M4GTS literally the next day. It is just an incredible, incredible car. If you ever get to drive a GTS or own a GTS, just go for it. Don't be like me and sell it. Hold on to it, man, because these are just special, special vehicles. So I can't quite tell if the water injection system is actually working in this car. But basically, long story short, the water injection systems in these GTSs are just known to be a little bit finicky. A lot of people had issues with them in the past, previous owners from tracking. They had block issues, they had line pressure issues, and it seems like what he's facing right now is a line pressure issue, which could be a lot of things. You have to remember when it comes to the water injection system on this car, the tank must only be filled with distilled water. One of the main problems is that people will put normal water in this tank and it will end up corroding and causing line pressure issues. So the real question is, in the past year, with all of the people that have had their hands on this car in the past 3,300 miles, who knows what kind of water they put in it, and that can cause problems down the road. Ultimately what the water injection system, and with it being so finicky, it's like that's really all it can take is something like the wrong type of water that you put in it to ultimately cause it to malfunction. Now, I don't know if that is exactly the issue, but my suspicions are saying maybe it could also just be a bad line. It could be something with the block, which would be really unfortunate because they get expensive. Could be a stone filter issue. There's just a lot of variables. But that is ultimately why this car is here, because he did have the misfire issue, which is something in and of itself. I don't really feel any problems with the car while I'm driving it. But again, we're gonna pull codes, kind of see what's going on. You know, these could have also been problems with the Valvetronic when they replaced it. Remember, a Alfa Romeo dealership did perform the work. I'm not saying that they can't do it, but who knows? Well, you never know. You never know. But the car feels good. I mean, it doesn't hesitate. I will say it feels a little bit sluggish. That makes me think that there probably is something going on with the water injection system, because you can feel the water injection system. It's like you get an extra boost. You also have to remember that I pinned the crank hub on this GTS. So I don't know how many pinned GTSs are out there, but this has to be one of the few. But honestly, man, it's like the perfect car to take to the track. Like, if you have the time and the money to do it, this is the one to take to the track, because it's ready, it's set up. So we're just gonna use the scan tool and see what it brings up. But yeah, man, she still looks so good. Wow, do I miss it. Ooh. Drives great. I mean, I really don't feel any issues with it, but you know, those little line pressure issues can sneak up on you, and they're tough to diagnose. So we'll see. Hendel, back on the channel. Dr. Hendel.
Let's see what's going on here.
Hendel, did you miss this car? You're supposed to say yes.
Yeah, man, I missed it.
Do you think I should buy it back?
No, probably not.
No? You don't like it?
I mean, we don't know what's wrong with it, man.
I can send you
boy.
I can send you my.
All right, so what do we got?
Water injection, pressure holding test, pressure drop too high, working area pressure too low, misfire several cylinders, 3, misfire, just misfires.
Bunch of misfires. Are those current or old or what?
They're old, but they're probably current.
I mean, the car drives fine.
It doesn't. Then they're old. Obviously, it's not misfiring now. Then, right?
Yeah, it's not misfiring now. Did he say that it was misfiring?
I think he did. Yeah, he did.
He did.
Yeah,
so he had
that.
an issue previously at some point, and then probably had the codes cleared.
He said the Valvetronic motor was recently replaced.
Yes, the Valvetronic motor was replaced by the Alfa Romeo dealership.
I wonder if they did the learning adaptation.
Oh, okay.
But it sounds. It's not making any weird noises.
So what would be our plan of attack for like solving these issues for the car after diagnosing?
When you drove it, did you floor it at all?
Mm-hmm.
You did?
Yeah, it felt fine. I couldn't really tell if the
if,
water injection was working or not.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too, because if that's not working, then
yeah,
probably could cause an issue.
Right.
We could check what tune is on it as well.
Oh yeah, he was saying that there might be a tune on it?
Yeah, so if there's a tune on it and he's got stock plugs or something like that, it could cause issues.
Yeah, that's true.
So yeah, we'll check it out.
All right.
Probably check the plugs first.
Okay, cool.
See how that looks.
Well, we are going to do the rest of the diagnosing on this car. Probably pull the plug, start there, see if there is a tune. I forgot about that. When I sold this car, I took the tune off of the car. I had a stage 2 tune on the car, so it really wasn't anything crazy. Like, it was probably making a little over 500. Yeah, and we kind of got to go through the car, make sure there aren't any other modifications that were added to it. Really haven't even had a chance to look at anything on the car. Haven't had it on a lift. Haven't even looked in the engine bay. As far as I know, the car is still in the factory condition that I left it. But again, other people have had their hands on it. They have been replacing things, so it is time for us to start with the spark plugs, maybe go for another drive with Hendel. But I did just want to show you guys that it is back in our possession for a little while. We're gonna go ahead and fix it, give it back to Dimitri so he can enjoy it. And in the next video with this car, we will talk about everything that we did fix on it and how we went about that. The water injection stuff is the stuff that can be the most finicky, and then also obviously the misfires are concerning, but that could have been something related to replacing the Valvetronic motor. Who knows? We have to do more diagnosing to figure out, but ultimately I think I might have to Hendel said don't buy it back. I don't know, man. I want to buy it back. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. We will see you in the next one.